There is a family that influenced the course of modern economic history so profoundly that its effects reach your bank account today. A dynasty that financed wars, built financial empires, and established relationships with the world's most powerful institutions, including the Vatican. Today, we'll explore how the Rothschild family became synonymous with global financial power and why understanding this history is fundamental to comprehending the economic system we live in. Prepare yourself for a fascinating journey through the backstage of finance that shaped the modern world. Our story begins in Frankfurt, Germany in 1744, with the birth of Mayer Amschel Rothschild. Son of a coin merchant from the Jewish ghetto, Mayer demonstrated exceptional skills for business and finance from a young age. By the late 18th century, he established a currency exchange and antiques business that quickly gained the attention of local nobility. Mayer's differential wasn't just his technical competence, but his strategic vision. He realized that true power didn't reside in accumulating personal wealth, but in controlling capital flows between nations and institutions. During this period, the Catholic Church was one of the largest wealth holders in the Western world. Centuries of tithes, donations, properties, and investments had transformed the Vatican into an economic powerhouse. However, medieval Christian doctrine prohibited usury, lending money at interest, which created a dilemma for an institution that needed to grow its capital. The solution found was to use intermediaries, frequently Jewish bankers, who weren't subject to the same religious restrictions. This dynamic created a complex relationship between religious institutions and banking families, where both benefited mutually while maintaining public distance. Mayer Amschel implemented a strategy that would be revolutionary for the time. Between 1798 and 1810, he positioned his 5 sons in Europe's main financial capitals: Nathan in London, James in Paris, Salomon in Vienna, Karl in Naples, and Amschel remained in Frankfurt. This network allowed the family to create the first truly international banking system, capable of transferring funds, information, and influence across borders in unprecedented ways. Each son established banking houses that maintained constant communication and coordinated large-scale operations. The event that consolidated the Rothschilds' financial power was the Battle of Waterloo. In 1815, Nathan Rothschild, based in London, had developed a private communication network using carrier pigeons and express messengers. When Napoleon was defeated, Nathan received the news before the British government. According to historical records, he used this informational advantage to conduct operations in the British bond market that substantially multiplied his wealth. This maneuver not only demonstrated the importance of information in financial markets, but established the Rothschilds as indispensable players in the European economic system. During the Napoleonic Wars, the family developed a practice that would become their business model, financing multiple sides of conflicts. Historical documents show that the Rothschilds provided loans both to nations fighting against Napoleon and to the French Empire itself at different times. This strategy wasn't necessarily unethical by the standards of the era. It was simply financial pragmatism. Bankers served as capital facilitators, and war was the most lucrative business available. What this meant in practice was that, regardless of the political outcome, debts needed to be paid, and interest kept flowing. The relationship between the Rothschilds and the Vatican deepened significantly in the 19th century. After Italian unification in 1870, the Vatican lost its political territories and faced an existential crisis. In 1929, the Lateran Treaty, negotiated with Mussolini, restored Vatican sovereignty and included financial compensation of 750 million Italian liras, plus government bonds worth 1 billion liras. This substantial amount needed to be invested and managed with expertise the Church didn't possess internally. Bankers with connections to the Rothschild network and other European banking houses were fundamental in this process, establishing investments that extended across diverse sectors of the global economy. The Vatican Bank, officially the Institute for Works of Religion, was founded in 1942 and became the official financial arm of the Holy See. Over the decades, this institution accumulated an impressive portfolio of investments in real estate, companies, commodities, and financial markets. The opacity of its operations, protected by the Vatican's sovereign state status, allowed it to function outside the regulatory controls that govern conventional banks. This structure, while legal, created opportunities for abuses that would surface in later scandals. World War II represents a controversial chapter in this history. Declassified documents reveal that the Vatican maintained complex diplomatic relations during the conflict, including communications with the Nazi regime. There is evidence that assets confiscated from European Jews were transferred through channels that included ecclesiastical institutions. Although the exact extent and intentionality of these transfers remain debated by historians. After the war, the so-called Rat Line, a network that helped Nazis flee to South America, included elements within the church, raising questions about complicity and moral responsibility. In the 1980s, the Vatican Bank was involved in one of the century's biggest financial scandals. The Calvi case, involving Italian banker Roberto Calvi of Banco Ambrosiano, exposed connections between the Vatican, the Italian mafia, and money laundering schemes. Calvi was found dead under mysterious circumstances in London in 1982. Investigations revealed that hundreds of millions of dollars had disappeared through a complex network of shell companies and offshore accounts. The scandal forced reforms, but also demonstrated how religious institutions could operate in gray zones of the global financial system. Now, how does this affect you today? The modern banking system was fundamentally shaped by practices established by families like the Rothschilds. The creation of central banks, issuance of public debt, government bond markets. All these mechanisms have historical roots in the financial innovations of the 19th century. When your government issues bonds to finance spending, when interest rates are set by central banks, when currency markets fluctuate, you're interacting with systems that evolved directly from these historical practices. The Rothschild family today operates through multiple entities, including Rothschild & Co., a global investment bank. Their wealth is dispersed across generations and dozens of family members, making it difficult to calculate precisely. Estimates vary enormously, but the family's influence transcends absolute numbers. They established precedents about how private capital can influence public policies, how information translates into competitive advantage, and how international networks can operate above national jurisdictions. Now, I ask you a question to reflect on and share your opinion in the comments. Considering that religious institutions accumulated vast riches while preaching poverty and material detachment, do you believe there's a fundamental contradiction between faith and finances? Or did these institutions simply adapt to the economic realities of their times? Leave your perspective below. The Vatican's patrimony is the subject of constant speculation. Official estimates place assets between $10 and $15 billion. But this figure doesn't include the priceless value of historic properties, artworks, or undeclared corporate holdings. Independent analysts suggest the real value could be several times higher. What we know for certain is that the Vatican maintains globally diversified investments, including commercial real estate, corporate stocks, and investment funds. In 2013, Pope Francis initiated a campaign of transparency and financial reform. Audits were conducted, executives were replaced, and new controls were implemented. In 2020, however, another scandal emerged involving the investment of €200 million in a luxury building in London. Investigations revealed that donations from the faithful had been diverted to real estate speculation, with questionable returns. Cardinals were investigated, legal proceedings were opened, but the fundamental structure remained intact. The religious funding model has evolved significantly in the contemporary world. In Brazil and other countries, neo-Pentecostal churches have built financial empires based on donations, tithes, and media investments. Pastors accumulate personal fortunes, acquire private jets and luxury properties, all while preaching prosperity to the faithful. This phenomenon isn't new. It's a continuation of patterns established centuries ago, just adapted to modern means of communication and the possibilities of contemporary capitalism. The central question that emerges from this history isn't whether religions should have financial resources. That's inevitable in any institutional organization. The question is transparency, accountability, and alignment between discourse and practice. When institutions that preach spiritual values operate as financial corporations without adequate oversight, it creates a fertile space for abuses. And when these institutions intertwine with global financial power networks, the effects extend far beyond their congregations. The Rothschilds established a model where private capital can exercise influence over sovereign states. When a family or financial institution holds significant portions of a nation's debt, it acquires bargaining power over economic policies. This model was replicated and expanded over the centuries. Today, investment funds, international banks, and multinational corporations exercise comparable influence, but in more diffuse and less personalized ways. The name has changed, but the mechanism remains. The inflation that erodes your purchasing power, the interest rates that determine the cost of your credit, the fiscal policies that define how much you pay in taxes, all these variables are influenced by a financial system whose roots go back to the practices we've discussed here. You participate in this system not by choice, but by necessity. You were born into it, registered within it, and will operate within it throughout your life. Understanding its historical origins doesn't give you power to escape, but offers clarity about the forces that shape your economic reality. The history of the Rothschild family and its connections with religious institutions is a case study on how financial power consolidates and perpetuates across generations. It's about how information converts into advantage, how relationship networks transcend borders, and how institutions adapt their practices to available opportunities. It's not a conspiracy in the sense of a secret orchestrated plan. It's simply the logical functioning of systems created by people who understood the rules of the game better than their contemporaries. Today's global financial system is infinitely more complex than in the 19th century. It involves high-frequency algorithms, sophisticated derivatives, cryptocurrencies, and technologies that Meyer Amschel Rothschild could never have imagined. But the fundamental principles remain. Whoever controls capital controls the options available to everyone else. Whoever defines the rules of the financial system determines who wins and who loses. And these rules were written, refined, and perpetuated by those who benefit from them. So what do you do with this knowledge? First, recognize that understanding economic history isn't an abstract academic exercise. It's a practical tool for interpreting the world you live in. Second, question simplified narratives about economic freedom and meritocracy, recognizing that power structures shape opportunities in invisible ways. Third, demand transparency and accountability from institutions that affect your life, whether they're religious, financial, or governmental. Systemic change is unlikely in the short term, but individual awareness is the first step toward any collective transformation. If this content made you think differently about the world around you, share it with someone who also needs this perspective. Leave your view on this topic in the comments, and keep following the channel for more analyses that challenge common sense. Until the next video,